To the next video. In today's video I will show you how to protect your API routes using JWT in Spring Boot. So if you haven't watched my previous video of how to create simple REST APIs in Spring Boot, I would highly recommend doing that first, then coming back to this video. So I will quickly explain you. Here I have one API endpoint of register, and you can create an user using email and password and you get a JWT. Similarly for login as well, I can log in with the same user as well, and I will get a JWT. Once I get a JWT, suppose if I want to access this another API endpoint, user details / details, okay, even though this does not give me the user details, I'm just passing something inside the body, but inside the headers you will have to pass your JWT token. If you don't pass it, you won't be able to access it. So I'll just update my JWT token and click on send, and here you can see it gives me the user ID based on the JWT token which you have passed. So if so this user has add user ID of 25 inside my database, and also whatever you have sent inside the body, I'm just printing it to the console as well. Similarly for get request, suppose if I uncall like remove this authorization and try to access this API endpoint, I get a forbidden error, okay. But if I try to, and I'll just update this as well, okay, and I'll click on send, and here you can see I'm able to get the post. Similarly for creating post as well, I'm just accepting a title, and here inside headers you will have to pass an authorization. So I'll just update the bearer token, and I will enter third. I'll click on send, and here you can see, and if I try to do the get request again, here you can see third is also printed. So yeah, let's see how to do this. So firstly, create a Spring Boot application, and by going to spring.io, start.spring.io, and inside the if you see over here, I have kept everything as default, but inside project I have selected Maven, and inside add dependency I have added Spring Boot dev tools, Postgres SQL driver. I am using Postgres, Spring Web for creating REST APIs, and JDBC API. Next, what you have to do is you will have to go to src main resources application.properties, and here you will have to add inside Spring data source URL, you will have to add your Postgres URL, then the username and password for your Postgres database as well. So if you want a free Postgres database just for this POC kind of application, I think you can refer Neon Tech database. Again, this is not a sponsored video. I am using Neon Tech, that's why I'm referring it, but you can also use something like CockroachDB or Elephant SQL as well, whatever makes sense to you, or just install the Postgres application locally and then you can connect to it as well. Okay, next what I have done is, let's see. So first yeah, we have created our application. Next, inside pom.xml I have added few dependency. One is for Spring security, next is for Json Web Token, and also one is for Spring security crypto as well. So if I go to my pom.xml, I'll show you all the dependency which I have added. So these are present by default. So here I have added Spring Boot starter security, Json Web Token, Json Web Token implementation, then Json Web Token Jackson, and here I have also added this for bcrypt. Bcrypt is basically for hashing your password whenever a user tries to create authentication like registration and registration stuff, and also for login, once the user enter a password, we compare it with our hash password using bcrypt as well. Okay, next I have also created a constant.js file, and here this is the secret key for our JWT, and here I have also created token validity, like how long our JWT should be valid. This is like bearer, which we will have to hard code, because every time we want to pass authorization we have to write this bearer thing, and this is for user ID, and these are just error messages which I have created. Okay, next, going back to over here. So also you given that we are using JDBC, you will have to create your tables via firing this SQL commands inside your Postgres database. So just run this command so that it can create the users as well as the post table as well. Next, inside I have created a folder called domain. Inside that I have created user.java. So a user will have a user ID, email and password. I have created a constructor as well as getters and setters for all these things. Similarly for post.java as well, it will contain a post ID as well as starter, and I have created a constructor as well as getter and setters for all these things. Next, inside exceptions I have created this an auth exception, so which basically extends the runtime exception, and it takes a message whatever you want to pass, and also a bad request exception which again extends a runtime exception and takes a message. Next I will also show you this filters. So here I have created this filter so that every time you send a particular token, so this auth filter will be only called for this APIs, like the protected API endpoints, whichever APIs require the token. So every time you call that API, automatically this auth filter class will be triggered, because it extends the generic filter bean. And basically, like, this is boilerplate code which you have to write, so you don't have to worry much about it. Basically we are getting the request as well as the response. Then from the request we are getting the auth header, then we are splitting it, because the authorization contains the key, the word bearer space your tokens, right? So that's why we are removing this, and we are only getting the token over here. Once we get the token, we pass the API secret key to get our so firstly we require a secret key for our token, right? So we are generating that key using our API secret key, which we have defined it inside our constants file. And then from that what I'm basically doing is that so here we will get the token from the user. Okay, depending on so if you see the user has already passed the token, so get by that token we will get the user ID. And while so I will show you later on, while generating the token, I'm basically adding the user ID inside that token, so that I can identify which user it is based on the token. So once I get the token, from that I'm getting the user ID over here. Okay, this should be user ID, not token. Okay, and here once we get this this is similar thing. Once we have the token, we get user ID from that particular token, and we just add it to our http request.set attribute, so that our API endpoint, if it wants, you can use this user ID as well. I will show you where exactly I'm using this also. And in case of exception, I'm just throwing error messages, and here do filter, it moves the code to the next block. All right, next here I have created a class folder called repository. First I have created a user repository interface which has a create method, find by email method, get count by email, and find by ID. Then I have created an implementation class for it, so it is marked as @repository and implements user repository. And I have written some SQL queries for it, and I am using AutoAdd for our JDBC template. And here I have first overridden the create method, so we are just creating our key holder. Then we are just calling JDBC template.update connection. We are creating a prepared statement, and here we are setting string first for email and second for password. And from that we are getting from the key holder we are getting the user ID of that particular user. Okay, next I have created a row mapper which takes the user ID, email as well as the password. And this row mapper would be helpful for all these below methods, like one for find by email. So we are just using JDBC template.query for object. We are passing our query, we are passing our row mapper as well as our email. Similarly for getting count by email as well, JDBC template.query for object, we are calling SQL count by email. We are here we are given that the return type is in integer. We are using integer dot class, and we are just passing our email. And here again it is in form of user, that's why I'm using user row mapper over here and just passing our user ID. Similarly for post repository as well, I have created two methods, one for creating a post and one for getting all the post. And if you see the implementation details, I'm just extending post repository. I have marked it as @repository. I've written all the SQL queries for it. I'm doing dependency injection for JDBC template. Once the create method is called, same thing, just like user, we are creating a generated key holder, then we are calling our prepared statement to pass the title. From that we get the post ID, and from that post ID I'm doing query for object SQL find by ID. I'm getting that particular post and returning it back to the method. See, and here I have created our post row mapper as well, which takes a post ID as well as a title. And inside find all, I'm just calling JDBC template dot query SQL find all post row mapper. All right. Okay, coming back over here. Next, I have already shown you exceptions. Then is the service class. So inside service, again for user service I have created an interface, one for register and one for login. Both takes an email as well as a password. Then I have created a class called user service implementation, which implements the user service class. And here I have added the dependency injection for user repository, and this is for bcrypt password encoder, which will help us for like password hashing. Also, if you remember, if you see, you also have to write this security config.java class for your bcrypt password encoder so that it can be injected properly. So create a security config.java, and you have to write @configuration and @bean for this as well. Now coming back to user service implementation. So once the register user method is called, I am first validating our email. Okay, next I'm checking whether an email already exists in our database. If yes, then throw an exception. Otherwise we are encoding our password and then creating our user passing email as well as password. And here I'm just calling user repository dot find by ID user ID. Similarly for login user as well, if email is not equal to null, then we are converting it to lowercase. Then we are finding the user by its email ID, and if the password matches, then only I'm returning the user, because we are converting the user sent password with the hash password. So this password encoder dot matches method does all the heavy lifting for us. And here I am just throwing an exception. Similarly for post service as well, I have created an interface which takes two methods, create post as well as find all post. And if you go to the post service implementation.java, we are just implementing post service. And again, this is make sure you add this @service as well as @transactional. Okay, and given once create post is called, we are just checking if title is not empty. If title is empty, then throw exception, otherwise just call the create method. Similarly for find all post as well. Okay, next services is done. Next go to resource, and here I have created first resource. Okay, so go to resource, and here I have created first user resource.java. So this is a REST controller, and this is our API endpoint. So localhost whatever is our port 8080/API/user, and here we are injecting our user service. So here I have created a method for generating a token. So I am using the first I need to generate a secret key using our whatever secret key we have defined. So make sure this string is very large, otherwise you will get exception. You can't, I think it should be more than 256 bytes or something like that. Then we are calling JWT .builder .sign in with key, and issued at and expiration I have set. And inside claim, if you remember, while decoding the token I was telling you get the user ID. So here I am generating a token based on the user ID. And if you want to pass more details like user email as well, you can just write something like this as well. Okay, and then calling compact, and here inside map I'm just setting our token. And for login, as you can see, I'm just taking the email and password, and then I'm calling this login user method, and then I'm returning response entity generate token. I'm calling this method and just passing the user ID to it. Similarly for register as well, getting the email ID password, calling the register user method, and if everything is okay, we are calling generate token, passing the user ID to it. Next, I have created a user detail resource. Even though it does not give you a user detail, this is just for explanation purpose. Like, again, this is an API endpoint, okay, and this is a slash API slash user details slash details, okay. And here, if you are sending something, you will get back it. Here you can see I'm just assigning it back to our map while before returning it. And if you want the user ID which was encoded inside our JWT token, you can get it something like this. Because if you remember, inside our auth filter we were setting this as http request.set attribute. That's why you are able to get the user ID over here using something like this. Next, going to post resource.java. Again, I have created an API endpoint. I have injected post service, and this is for post request. This is a get request. For post, we want to create a title, so I'm getting the title, and here I am just calling create post method. Then I have created a map, and I am passing our post directly to it and just returning it back. So because our return type is object, that's why I can directly hardcode post inside it. Similarly, over here as well, I have kept the return type as object, so I can directly embed all the post list of post inside this post variable itself and returning it back. Now you might be wondering, where are we protecting this post routes and this user detail service, right? So coming back to demo application.java, here you can see that I have added so this is for our course, so that our, if in case you have a web app or a web application website, it can directly call all the API endpoints which you have created. And here I have called this filter registration bin, and here you can see again this is boilerplate code where we are initializing our auth filter and setting to our registration bin. But if you see, these are the API endpoints which are protected, so I have explicitly marked it something like this. Okay, let's see if anything else is pending. So I have created this demo application. Yeah, I've shown you this. I think that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.